Falling in love is one of the most exhilarating and sometimes baffling experiences we pursue as humans. In a constantly changing world of dating apps, shifting norms, and emotional overload, many people today are all asking the same question: how do I find love? Hello there, this is Bradley, and you're listening to Psych Everywhere, a podcast by Psych High, the International Honor Society in Psychology. For this show, distinguished guests weigh in on applying psychological science to a diverse range of current events and to better your life. Listen for free wherever you go for podcasts, or see the link in the show notes for a written transcript for this episode. This episode was made possible by CSPP Alliant International University. If you'd like to learn about graduate programs at CSPP, be sure to check out the link in the show notes for this episode. Are you ready to explore the psychology behind first dates, emotional connection, and what it really takes to build a lasting romantic relationship? Joining us today to guide us to the heart of what makes romantic relationships work is Dr. Seema Saigal, a licensed clinical psychologist and professor in the PsyD program at CSPP. Dr. Saigal brings a powerful blend of academic expertise and clinical insight to her work, with interest in close relationships and the ways in which personality traits, mental health symptoms, behavioral interaction patterns, and geographic proximity impact health and relationship satisfaction. Recognized for her teaching excellence and mentorship, Dr. Saigal helps others build resilience, deepen self-awareness, and form more meaningful connections. Dr. Saigal, welcome to Psych Everywhere.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am really excited about this topic. A while back, we did an episode on romantic relationship conflicts, and it was super popular. And so I know people are interested in hearing more about relationships. So my first question is, you once conducted a study on first date experiences, both the good and the bad. Could you share some of the more notable and surprising findings and what those reveal about how people connect?
Yes, I love that study so much. It was so much fun to do. So we had live first dates in a little gallery setting with undergrad students at Northwestern and my lovely collaborators, Dr. Eastwick and Dr. Finkel. And we were really trying to understand what sparks that initial attraction. What makes you attracted to someone versus someone else. And so we had these lovely video recordings. People also rated every date at the end of the date. They also said, yes, do I want to go out with this person again, see them again, or no? And initially, before any of this, they also filled out sort of their ideal romantic partner, kind of the ideal qualities they were looking for. So a few things, many things stood out. It was a great study. And so one was this idea of selectivity that, we want to feel special. There's, some folks out there who think, oh, it's a numbers game. So I'll just say yes to everyone and that will increase my odds of, matching with someone. But no, that is not a winning strategy, right? Because again, people can pick up on that. People can pick up on the eagerness, the desperation, right? And the idea that you're just looking for a relationship, right? Versus you're attracted uniquely to them and what they have to offer. So that was something, right? So kind of play hard to get, but be open to the right person was kind of a take-home message. Another really interesting piece was that people's kind of initial list, right, of all the qualities they wanted, right? The Excel spreadsheet, the pen and paper list, that did not seem to play out in terms of or really have much relationship to who they were liking in real life. And so there's several ways one could interpret that. One is maybe we don't know what we want or we don't know what's really good for us, right? The heart wants something, the brain wants something else, or vice versa. But the other way is that it's not really about these individual traits. It's more about the magic and the sparks that fly when we create something together. And that's a really fun and encouraging message, right? Because, obviously, we'd love to be a 10 on everything, but not everyone's a 10 on everything. But it doesn't seem that that matters so much. It seems more important to really build something fun and build that chemistry together. And just anecdotally, I mean, there were thousands of these dates. I watched so many of them with my research assistants, and it was a lot of fun. Made me want to be 19 and in college again. And we picked the 40 smoothest dates and the 40 most awkward and cringy dates. And we compared them, right, to see what are people doing on the smooth dates and what are people doing on the awkward dates. So we know what to do and we know what not to do. And anecdotally, some really cute stories, right? And cute, we got to see the video, so it was a lot of fun. Those first impressions matter too, right? So a couple sat down, and he immediately was like, "Oh, we're sitting too far away." So he pulled her chair in, and she was like, "Ooh, hi!" And immediately they were off to the races. Another couple, so cute. She was about 5 foot. I think he was 6'4", and he immediately was like, "Taller, you stand up." And, they're standing next to each other and they're super cute together. And they were off to the races, right? Kind of joking about their giant height difference. So stuff like that, right? Kind of that unique chemistry that you can spark right away, right? Versus kind of the more standard and boring scripts. Hi, how are you? Where are you from? Right? If you can spice things up and make things more unique and interesting, I think that's always good. I will say, right, we generally know how to approach people. We definitely, right, everyone talks about the pickup lines and how to initiate, romantic conversations, interactions. But I think we also need to pay attention to how we're reacting, right? So we want to react. We want to laugh at our partner's jokes, right? We want to react in a warm, flirtatious manner. Also watch our body language because, again, people like to feel like they're attractive, they're special, they're desired, right? They're being seen and understood and listened to. So again, paying really close attention to our reactions. There's another piece, right? I will say in terms of the don'ts, you definitely don't want to spend more than half the time talking about yourself. Less than half the time would be better, right? Because people are somehow very sensitive to this. You go over the 50% mark and they're like, no, it's all about you. I'm out. Okay, so that's one thing, right? Focus on the other person. Be curious about that. People love to talk about themselves. And the other thing is this idea of closeness, right? How close versus independent. And you want to strike a balance, right? So you don't want to be too aloof, but you also don't want to be too needy and too dependent. You want to strike that balance of like, I'm good on my own, but this could be even more fun together. And so those are some of the takeaways, but super interesting study. I would love to do more of those. It's what got me hired as a professor in my first job, the speed dating study. So love it.
Great advice. I know dating apps are on the rise. Could you share any psychological pros and cons for dating apps as opposed to in person?
Yes, that's a great question, especially as we think about dating in the modern age. So I would say, right, there's some psychological elements of love and dating and romance that are inescapable, right? Some amount of anxiety, rejection, ghosting, heartbreak, even deception is going to happen regardless of the platform, right? Whether it's online or in person. But there are some notable differences. And I will say, really, it comes down to knowing yourself and playing to your strengths. So if you're shy or introverted, right, the dating apps could really offer some advantages because you can start the conversation, chat people up a while before that kind of awkward first date. It can sort of take away some of that, or not take away, but lessen some of the awkwardness of the first date. So that could help. I was just listening to Love Factually, my former colleagues' podcast, Dr. Finkel and Dr. Eastwick, and they talk about the friends to lovers pathway. And so I would say, don't overlook your friends. Don't overlook people already in your circle. There may be a diamond in the rough there hiding, and it's worth the wait. I've had a lot of friends play the long game, stick around for a friend when they had feelings, but the friend didn't, and now they're together and they have like 5 kids, and so you never know. So that's a pathway. Certainly, mutual friends, right, is nice. If someone can introduce you, then they've been vetted. They're kind of similar to you and sort of in your sphere if that's something that you want. The dating apps are interesting. They can offer something a little different, right? I will say, and I tried Bumble BFF just for fun. I was already in a committed relationship, but I tried it just for fun to make friends. Actually, I joked with one of my friends, we're still great friends today, that we should have got exclusive because our first date was great. And that was all I needed. She's the only one that made it and that we're still friends. So my Bumble BFF friend, this is for you. You know who you are. Right. So a wide spectrum of people. And I would say, and that could be good or bad, right? If you like to meet people from different walks of life, you're really open to new experiences, different personality styles, that could be really good. But, if you want to meet someone very similar to you in your sphere, maybe that could be less good. I will say dating apps are a bit unique in that, right, things like ghosting, deception, catfishing can be even more extreme than in real life, right? So you can post a picture that's not even you, but you can also engage in other forms of deception, having a picture that's 10 years old, your younger, hotter self when you had a six pack, right? And I think we're all doing that to some extent, but there's varying degrees. And I think the dating apps certainly, you could get away with more deception longer before meeting in person. So that's something to be careful of. I think because of the dating apps, it sort of gives the illusion that I'm always going to level up. There's always someone better, and I'm going to keep trading up. But the thing is, other people are also leveling up and trading up. And so where do you stop? Where do you draw the line? And so sometimes I think it can undermine, right? It can undermine commitment and satisfaction because you're wondering, yes, I have this person, but is there someone even better for me out there? And it can also give the illusion that people are, options are limitless and people are disposable, which of course they're not, but it can definitely appear that way. And so that can create some unique dynamics. But yeah, I would say, know your style and lean into that.
What about shyness? Do you have any advice for people who are shy and hesitant to put themselves out there?
Yeah, I think sometimes we think that everyone needs to be extroverted and charming in this way or that way. But I will say that whatever flavor you are, there's someone or multiple people out there who love that flavor and for whom you are exactly the right flavor. So I would say, show up, stay in the game, and I think it's easy to think, oh, that person's out of my league, and here I am over here. But I would say show up, stay in the game, and there's somebody out there who's definitely going to think you're a 10 plus. So, be authentic and be curious. There's a lot of research about self-disclosure. Self-disclosure builds intimacy, right? Be vulnerable, be open. Again, kind of going back to those sharing unique and quirky things about yourself, treasured memory, a favorite moment, a high point, a low point, a dream, a goal, a hope, a fear. So all these things can really help get things going. But yeah, I would say, whatever your style is, there's probably somebody else shy out there and maybe they're excited to meet someone just like them. So hang in there. Someone's out there for you.
This episode was made possible through a PsyChi sponsorship with the Alliant International University, California School of Professional Psychology. That's CSPP. Founded in 1969, CSPP was one of the nation's first independent schools of professional psychology. Today, CSPP continues its commitment to preparing the next generation of mental health professionals and advocates. Their dedication to ensuring every community's access to quality mental health care extends from integrated care to inclusive family therapy. Explore their programs at https://info.alliant.edu/partner-psychi. And I'll put a link in the show notes too. I've, just anecdotally heard women say, men these days, they're just too shy. I put myself out there and they're just goofily walking around and they don't ever ask. And I've also seen a statistic floating around recently saying that 45% of guys 18 to 25 have never asked a person out in person. And so it got me wondering, what should women do to encourage men to speak up, or should the women speak up themselves?
This is such a great question. Again, kind of in the modern times. And, I think gender norms are changing so rapidly. And I think that's part of the confusion. Should I do it the old way or the new way or something in between? Gender itself is non-binary. And I think it's also very cultural, right? Your cultural roles, your gender roles, how much you align with those personality wise and other ways. And so there's a lot to consider. But I've certainly heard that. I have a lot of male clients and they say, Seema, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. do? Am I supposed to be dominant and take charge? Or am I supposed to be, focus on, of course, respect and consent culture and sort of defer and let her take the lead? And so I think it's confusing. And in some ways, the answer is yes, yes to all, yes, take charge. And yes, also consent culture and defer and switch up the roles and have those conversations. I've also heard women say, I want to be a boss lady. I want to take charge and I want to do the asking, but sometimes that could be off-putting if I come on too strong. Should I defer and let them take the lead? So I think, again, it goes back to those ideas of gender roles, cultural roles, societal roles and expectations, and how that vibes with our own values and personalities. But I would say, as a clinical psychologist and with my clients, I always say, do whatever is working for you, right? If it's working, great, keep doing it. And if it's not, let's play around with it. Let's have some fun. Let's maybe try something new. Let's get out of our comfort zone. And right to those women who are wondering if they should do the asking, I would say, yeah, go for it. Try it out. See how it plays. And if you don't want to do the asking, there's ways, I think, to be asked and get asked and invite the asked, right? By kind of being warm and inviting and sending those nonverbal signals, the glance, the smile, the laugh, the sip of your drink, and the open body posture.
Playfulness and flirting, that's all an important part of building romantic attraction, but it could also, like you've said, lead to misunderstandings or rejection. So how can people be playful when they're pursuing a date, but without crossing boundaries or getting themselves hurt?
It's really like a dance, isn't it? We're trying to dance together and we're trying to feel each other out. I will say, right, humans are complex. We're not mind readers. And so some level of misunderstanding and hurt feelings, I think, is inevitable if we're relating to each other. There's that balance, again, kind of between playfulness and also, right, consent culture, respectfulness. And I would say you can kind of dip your toes in a little bit, right? And try some things out, right? Maybe like a smaller scale. Just dip your toe in, try some things out, and then you can listen carefully for the response, right? And I think sometimes when we think consent culture, it's like, oh my God, I have to have a written document and a signed agreement. And that's not really what I mean by consent culture, right? We don't want to kill the vibe, totally, right? But there's ways to kind of subtly say, like, is this okay? Like, how is this feeling? Are you liking this? Are you available? Are you in a relationship right now? What are you looking for? Would you like to grab coffee or a drink? And so I think there's ways to ask and dip your toe in that's sort of playful and fun, but also is not such a huge ask or boundary crossing that gives the other person space to react. And they may react verbally or non-verbally. And I would say definitely kind of pay close attention to that, right? I think we've all been in that place where like, oh, this person that I'm interested in texted me this. What does it mean? And then you have, the committee of your closest friends and spend about, 5 hours over drinks evaluating this one text, right? I think we've all been there, right? Do they like me? Do they not? Should I pursue? Should I not? And so also seeking great counsel has also been a secret to success, right? So, when in doubt, right? Ask your friends. They'll give it to you straight.
Before I ask this next question, I wondered, is love at first sight a real thing?
People
What
always
do you
ask
think?
that. Yeah, there is, and again, right, love is so deep and so complex. I think there is definitely like attraction and maybe even infatuation at first sight, right? And it's largely based on. I mean, it's based on yes, a hotness, attractiveness, but there's other things like how a person moves, how they talk. I don't know how they move through the world, their vibe, right? And I think that is starting to approach kind of love, although I would say it's probably closer to infatuation. But I think that's something, that's such a great question, Bradley. And I think it kind of goes, there's this idea, right? There's these cultural scripts and cultural expectations. And I think sometimes there's this expectation that wow, love just hits you and boom, it happens magically. And people just show up and, oh, they're the one, they're my soulmate. That's it. And I mean, occasionally, sure, that happens. And if it does, great, run with it. Love that for you. But I think for most of us, right, there's a lot of trial and error and learning about ourselves and other people. And there's a lot of building, right? Building that intimacy and connection and closeness over time. And that level of satisfaction and connection and depth is different, right, than the sort of more superficial, hey, you're hot and I love the way you move through the world.
So how could you tell then if someone's interested in finding love or if they just want to have a good time?
This question gets me back to this idea of deception, right?
Mhm.
I think it can be very hard to tell, right? I always say, like, hey, you could just ask. But the truth is, sometimes people might conceal the truth a little bit. For example, I have had many clients who've been ghosted after they had sex with someone. They thought the relationship was going somewhere. And then once that person got sex, boom, they just, they dropped off. And that was very hurtful for my clients, of course, right? But I think, and my clients checked it out, right? And these people said, oh, yeah, I'm looking for something long term. I'm ready to commit. But they weren't. They were just saying that to get sex, right? And I understand, right? Relationships are adaptations to meet needs, and we're all trying to get our needs met. And I've seen it both ways, right? People pretend to be more open to long term, but they're really looking for a more short term fling or hookup. And I've also seen it the flip side where people pretend to be open to a hookup or friends with benefits, but secretly they're working on a long con and they're working on, oh, well, if I just have sex with them one or two times, they'll see how amazing I am. And then they'll change their mind and they'll want to get into a long term relationship. So I think there is some level of deception and we're all trying to get our needs met. And sometimes those align and sometimes they don't. And sometimes people are honest about that and sometimes they're not. So I would say, how do you know? It is hard to tell, and it can be impossible to tell at times, depending on how good people are at deception. But I would say pay close attention to the nonverbals, the subtle cues, maybe even like the rest of their life, their relationship history. If they've never been in a long term relationship, I mean, certainly you could switch gears, right? You could say, all right, college, that was fun. Now I'm ready to settle down. But I would say pay attention to these other cues and maybe, their lifestyle and their goals. And maybe these other subtle cues could give you hints and clues as to what they're really after, right? Because again, people don't always tell us because they're trying to meet their goals and we're trying to meet our goals. And so do they align? And ideally, you find someone whose goals align with yours. If not, I would say another question to ask yourself is, are you open? Are you open to seeing where this goes? Because again, things can change. Things do change and they can. They don't always. So it's not good to bank on that. But if you're game and your heart can hang in and take a few battle scars, then I would say maybe try it out and see how it goes. And maybe that's something that you and your partner or partners can negotiate together.
We've talked a lot about initiating relationships. Do you have any tips for maintaining them and building a lasting relationship?
This is a phenomenal question because again, I think we're so focused on initiating that spark,
Mhm.
that relationship. And then when we get the relationship, it's like we forget everything. We forget everything we did initially, right? We had all the secrets. We knew what to do to lock someone down. But once they're locked in, we get lazy, we get complacent. So yes, there's a lot of tips that I have for that. One thing is, right, remember why you got together in the first place. Remember what attracted you to that person. Sometimes the things that attract you, like, oh, they're so spontaneous and fun. And then later it's like, oh my God, they're so impulsive and disorganized and out of control, right? Or, oh, they're so stable. They're my rock. And now it's like, oh, they're boring and they're, constraining, controlling. And so sometimes the very things that attract us become sources of conflict later. And so I would say try to rewind the tape, try to go back to that initial, what attracted you in the first place and get back into that headspace. I think, we do so many things when we're getting to know each other and when we're trying to lock someone in. And I would say keep doing those things, right? Don't get lazy, don't get complacent. So, for example, we get to know people. Okay, what's your favorite family member, your biggest hope, your worst fear, your most stressful moment? And then we sort of assume, I know everything there is to know about them. But the truth is, we're always evolving, we're always changing, and we always want to be seen and known and understood. So keep asking those questions. Right now, in this moment, what is the biggest stressor for you? What is your biggest dream that you have yet, that you haven't fulfilled yet? What is your current goal right now, right? And those things really change over the life course. And so I think it's important. John and Julie Gottman, just incredible relationship psychologists, they call this love maps, right? We're building our love maps when we get to know people. And then we forget to update them, but it's really critical to update them. Another tip for maintaining relationships, if you want to get real, plain and simple, again, this is from John and Julie Gottman, it's all about the ratio of positive interactions to negative interactions. And I'm sure everyone knows, right? When you have a fight, man, a conflict, it's exhausting. It just boom boom, it withdraws 10 from the bank account. And then when you do something nice, okay, you make someone a cup of coffee. Okay, thanks. It's 1 point, right? So you've got to do a lot of nice things to make up for the 1 fact. So the best, happiest couples have 10 positive interactions for every one negative. And 5 to 1 is the minimum to keep your relationship going. If you have less than 5 to 1, less than 5 positive interactions to 1 negative interaction, then you're pretty much headed for relationship dissolution, right? Which in some cases, that may be the best thing. But if you want to keep your relationship going and you value this person and you fit well with them, or you used to, maybe it's worth fighting for and trying to bring up that positivity. So I would say appreciations, positive things, little notes in a jar, right? All the cute stuff. It's like brushing your teeth, right? I would say even when you brush your teeth in the morning, at night, thank your partner for something, appreciate something about them, apologize to them if there's something that, you missed or you didn't do very well. So that ratio of positivity. We also forget, right? We just get so in our heads, right? And we think that our own reality is the truth. And, and it's easy to see our flaws in other people, but not the flaws in ourselves, right? And so I would say it's really important to look inward, be humble, be reflective, and also give your partners the benefit of the doubt. I was listening to an Esther Perel podcast to get inspired for this, and she had a great piece of advice. And she talked about, what are you nurturing? What is something that you're nurturing about this relationship? And did you do one thing today to nurture the relationship, to help it grow? And is there something that's not serving you in that relationship? And did you do something to try to let that go? And to always have those 2 points of focus. Almost every day is a little self-check-in. For my clients who are couples and romantic partners, I say sometimes you kind of need a state of the union. Let's do a little state of the union about our relationship. Let's check in. Let's see how we're doing. Are we happy? Are we meeting our goals? Is this our life mission, our legacy? Are we there? Or what are we missing? What can we do better? What are we doing well? And take time to celebrate each other and reconnect with each other.
Because your study that you did was on speed dating, this afternoon I was thinking, hey, we should do some speed questions.
Oh, God.
Fast round. Are you game?
I'm game. I'm game. Let's do it,
Okay.
Bradley. Ooh, you're
So
making me nervous.
these are fun. So I wrote down 7 popular sayings about love. These are things that people live their lives by, but I don't know if they're true or not. Some of them I have an idea. So I'm going to go through them and you let me know if these are actually a way you should live your life. So the first one is love is a two-way street. How about opposites attract?
I would say less so on that one. Generally, we like some similarity, but again, it's all about the total package and the total vibe. So I would say largely we like similarity, but on some traits, opposites could be nice, right? If someone's real dominant, could be nice to have someone who's, kind of like more low key and lets you take the lead, right? If there's you want a driver and a passenger, or you want to be able to switch. So I would say generally a similarity, but sometimes people like a little opposite to spice things up. But be careful, those things can also lead to conflict later. So just do it with eyes open.
I'm imagining Eddie Murphy here on Shrek saying, long distance relationships, they never last.
You know what? I don't know about that one. I would say there are challenges. And actually, this is really fun because I did a study on long distance relationships as well. And we found that those folks were just as happy. If anything, right, there can be some unique, obviously, right, there's things like you can't get a physical hug and you can't get sexual intimacy in the same way, right? You could certainly do it virtually, but you can't get in the same way. But those folks are really happy when you're at a distance. There's some things you kind of preserve that initial spark, right? That initial romantic attraction when you're living together day in, day out. You're in your sweatpants, right? They're seeing the less sparkly sides of you, less cute, perhaps, right? You're getting snarky. You had a bad day. But in long distance relationships, you kind of get to preserve some of that initial spark, that initial infatuation, even. So I would say that in our study, anyways, long distance folks were happy, and there might even be some perks to that.
Number 4, there's someone for everyone.
Absolutely. And I would say there's someone's plural for everyone. So don't give up hope.
Don't go to bed angry.
Yes, that is a great one. Try to resolve that as soon as you can, because otherwise it piles up. And before you know it, it's just too much to deal with.
Okay, here's one. You teach people to love you by how you love yourself.
You know what? That is such a popular notion, but there's a lot of research on it, and it's uncorrelated, right? How much you
Huh.
love yourself doesn't relate to how you love other people. They're just totally different, right? Like and sometimes I think even the opposite, right? Sometimes I could be really down on myself, but I could be really good at focusing on other people. So I would say, of course, work on the self-love, but you know what? Don't worry. We're all working on self-love. I mean, it's a tough one. We're all harsh critics of ourselves. So if you're not there, don't worry. You could still find love with another person or persons.
Last one, all you need is love.
Oh boy. Okay, I would love to believe this. And the rom-coms would love to have us believe this. And there are times when I just want to believe this fantasy. The sad reality is, right, love does not conquer all. And there's just, right, there's the outside world, right? I mean, Love is Blind. I was doing a Love is Blind binge, right? In the pods, you have this attraction. And then you see people, even if you're still attracted to them physically, which is still, sometimes that could be a deal breaker. But assuming, okay, you love in the pods, you're attracted to them physically, but now the outside world starts to comment. Oh, the age difference. Oh, this, oh, that. Oh, we don't like this. You could do better. Some of these societal pressures can really put strain on a relationship, as well as sometimes different life goals, different tasks. Okay, well, I'm moving for school or for work, or I want kids or I don't. And so there are these extraneous things where, unfortunately, I don't think love conquers all, but I will say it conquers a lot. So, keep hustling, keep searching.
Listeners, I don't know about you, but I thought that this was one of the most fun and info-rich episodes that we've ever had. Dr. Saigal was incredibly gracious with giving us a lot of useful advice, and so I hope you take a few minutes to consider how might you apply some of it to your own relationships. Whether you're looking for a partner or you're years into a relationship. I'm sad to say that this episode is coming to an end, but I do have some awesome news. Dr. Saigal is returning to the show next week for a second episode. Today, we spoke about how do I find love. Up next, we'll dive into a related topic, how do I help others build meaningful romantic relationships? And we'll have that conversation both from the perspective of a professional counselor, as well as the viewpoint of a well-meaning friend or a family member. So if you've ever wanted to help initiate or support or even mend a relationship in any capacity, this one's for you. Be sure to tune in. This episode was made possible by CSPP Alliant International University. Learn more about graduate programs at CSPP at the link in the show notes. If you haven't already subscribed to Psych Everywhere, go ahead and follow us wherever you go for podcasts. Tell a friend or a colleague about the show. Word of mouth is a huge help for podcasts, so share what you learned at the dinner table or in your classes. You can also follow us on X at Psychi Podcast and leave a review at Apple Podcasts. You'll absolutely make my day. And more importantly, you'll be helping us to get Psych everywhere. Okay, that's all for now. I'll connect with you again soon. Copyright 2025. Psychi, the International Honor Society in Psychology. All rights reserved.